So my junior year of high school at Lyman, right up the road on Ronald Reagan, I remember an incident that left a really big impact on my own life. I was going from my math class to theater, and as I'm walking, I hear the code red siren go off. And I paused for a moment. I'd never been outside of class for a drill before. I knew that sometimes they had surprise drills, but never outside of class time. The siren stops, and I start making my way towards the classroom a bit faster. I didn't want to stick around and see what was going on. So I'm at the back door by the theater room, and on normal days, you just wait for whoever is passing by to open it for you. But the siren goes off again, and I'm standing outside, and I'm banging on the door, and a couple seconds later, my friend Caitlin sees me, and she opens the door. And we rush into the classroom, we throw down our bags, turn out the lights, rush into a smaller practice room, and then we sit in the dark, and we wait, and wait, and wait. I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest. No one seemed to know what was going on at all, not even my teacher. And I started wondering in the darkening silence if I was going to make it home, if I had turned off my phone, or if it was going to give us away, if there was really someone on campus with a gun. It had been over an hour before we had heard the all clear over the intercom. The issue was passed off as a false alarm, and most just went about their days. Myself and the other students were so lucky to have all made it out safely. Unfortunately, schools like Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, and so many others were not. What the students of those schools went through was far graver than anything I can ever imagine. Today, gun violence seems to be kind of an epidemic in the United States. Not only in schools does it appear, but also nightclubs, movie theaters, concerts, restaurants, hospitals, and in our neighborhoods. Not only does it occur in large-scale frenzied shootings, but also in domestic violence disputes, suicide, and sometimes simply by accident. Today in the United States, according to Scott Horsley, a reporter for NPR, and the Congressional Research Service, there are roughly twice as many guns per capita in the United States as there were in 1968. More than 300 million guns in all. That's almost enough guns for the entire population of the US. Of course, not everyone in the US owns guns. It's estimated that 31% of households are armed. Most are concentrated in rural areas and have more than one firearm on hand. So where's the issue at hand? In an article published in the New York Times written by Christine Hauer, it says that between 2015 and 2016, the rate of gun-related deaths rose from 11 deaths per 100,000 to 12 per 100,000, data recorded by the CDC, which, just by looking at these numbers, may look insignificant, but when you do the math, that's approximately 4,000 lives in between the two figures. When going further into the numbers, we see that suicides account for 60% of firearm-related deaths, homicides about 36%, unintentional firearm-related death, and those related to law enforcement officials account for about 1.3% each. The rest are undetermined. We see that access to guns not only creates dangers for other citizens, but especially for those who own guns themselves. Where do we compare to other countries? When looking at how we compared to other countries similar to our own, I saw how we dwarfed their statistics of gun violence. According to the BBC, the number of gun murders per capita in the US in 2012, the most recent year for comparable statistics, was nearly 30 times that in the UK at 2.9 per 100,000, compared with just 0.1. Of all the murders in the US, in 2012, 60% were by firearm, compared with 31% in Canada, 18.2% in Australia, and just 10% in the UK. Although mass shootings account for only a small portion of gun-related deaths, they garner masses of attention from the media. Students from Parkland realized their position and the opportunity that they had to make change and ran with it. They've been urging anyone and everyone who will listen to take responsibility for the preventable deaths and injuries that happen every year due to guns. They've spoken to their local, state, and federal leaders, demanding that steps be taken to limit the availability of certain kinds of firearms in the United States. On March 24th, over 800 cities all across the country, including right here in Orlando, held an event, March for Our Lives. My temple organized a big group of congregants to attend the march. My mother and I decided to go and be a part of the community to show our support for the hard work people are doing to make a change. Several teens involved in the youth group spoke about their experiences following the shooting in Parkland. When we got to Lake Eola, where the march started, I was blown away by everyone who had come together: children, teens, parents, teachers, grandparents, young and old alike, coming together to speak out against inaction and demand change. Their posters speaking their truths and their fears, friends with arms linked together, strangers becoming brothers and sisters. It was inspiring to see people from all backgrounds ready to support each other. We walked to City Hall, knowing that thousands of people like us were marching for our future. Imagine that one day soon, lawmakers finally hear what America has been crying out. Imagine that one day, no child will be afraid to go to school because they know they are protected. Imagine that one day, a teen will have the help they need before resorting to taking their own life with a household gun. Imagine the 30,000 lives that continued on their path instead of being stopped short by the bullet of a gun. There is so much we can do to bring our nation closer to that day, and it starts with just one. One moment to say enough is enough. One moment to pick up the phone and call your local or state representatives about common sense gun laws. One moment to link arms with your neighbor and march toward a safer future. I challenge each and every person listening to live with the audacity to believe that even just one person can make a change. Thank you.